This guy is a maximum throttle. He's got everything on maximum. He's like, ah! I swear the guy is a maniac. Hello, gorgeous. How are you doing? Welcome to another Cutting the Caboose. And in this one, I'm going to be talking about my fear of flying, where it came from, and kind of overcame it. So, I used to be a really, really bad flyer. These days, I fly so often, I'm kind of numb to it. But if I'm completely honest, I still don't like certain elements of the flight. And most of this came from a really bad experience of a flight I had many years ago when I actually thought I was going to die. So let me dig back into the past of where this came from. So this was about 18 years ago. It was around the year 2000 and we were flying to Orlando, and we were flying with a charter airline. It wasn't a great airline, and it just so happened that it was one of the stormiest days the country had ever had. So we got up from bed, you know, the day of departure, and it was all over the news. This huge storm was heading into the country. We were smack bang in the middle of it. It was going to hit Cardiff, where the airport was, and it was going to be horrendous. We're talking gale force, borderline like hurricane level winds here. This was a serious storm that was going to hit us. And I thought, oh, it was risky, we're not going to fly. But as it happens, at the time, I was doing my private pilot's license. I was learning how to fly an aircraft. And so I spoke to some friends of mine at the airport. I said, are we going to be delayed? Are we going to... our flight was due to take off at around midday, and the storm was due to hit at about 2 o'clock. So turns out we should have been up and clear before the storm hit. So I was like, okay, headed to the airport, and I asked what plane we were going to have, because we got to the check-in desk, and I was told it was a DC-10-30. Now, I don't know if you know much about aircraft, but the DC-10s had a little bit of a reputation. These things fell out of the sky. These are a really bad safety record. And the DC-10-30 wasn't even, it was a modified version for extended flight. So it was like somebody tinkered with it to allow it to fly across the Atlantic. I was like, okay, I'm already quite nervous about flying, which is why I was doing flying lessons to help me overcome my fear of flying. So to find out we're on, which was basically an old banger, it's basically a barn find of a plane. I'm less than amused by this. And outside the windows, the wind is howling and there are leaves blowing around, and the storm hasn't even hit yet. It's hours before the big storm gets here. These are just all the initial winds which are, building up to the storm. I'm really anxious about this. And then we find out that our flight has been delayed by an hour. So we're taking off right before this storm is about to hit. I thought, there's no way we're going to take off. There's no way that we're going to get this, this flight's going to be cancelled. So part of me is kind of relieved that we're not going to fly. They haven't said we're not going to fly. They've said the airline is saying we're flying. But I'm thinking nobody can take off in a storm like this. It's going to be fine. So the time comes around and we get called. We get called to board our flight. It's howling outside. It's only a small airport. You can hear the outside of the airport when you're inside the airport. And the wind is howling. The rain is lashing against the windows, and we're making our way towards the jetway, and it's just hammering down. We're crossing the little jetway onto the plane, and that's shaking because it's being buffeted by the wind. It's horrendous. We take to our seats. I am bricking it. I am sweating from my eyes. I'm so nervous. And I'm sitting in my seat. I'm holding... if that plane is still... Well, it won't be in operation. It'll have fallen apart by now. But my fingerprints are in the armrests of this chair, okay? We're waiting to push back from the apron, and the jetway pulls back, and the air crew are coming around to see everyone, and I'm like I'm really unhappy about everything that's happening. And this attendant, bless her, she's like, are you okay? And inside I just want to rip her face off. Do I look like I'm okay? I am shitting kittens in my seat right here. The plane is like being hit. There's wind howling all around us. This is horrendous. And the plane pushes back, and it's being buffeted by winds. I'm like, what is going on? Why are we taking off? This is insanity. Now, normally, with a heavy, with a large passenger aircraft that's fully loaded with fuel and passengers and luggage, the airfield, if it's long enough, the plane will come to the end of the runway, have brakes on, throttle up to about 80%, high rate of throttle. So the engines, because they take a while to spin up, and then they release the brakes and you're off like a bullet. Not even that was enough for this. Okay. The pilot hits the end of the runway at speed. The guy thinks he's in a stunt film or something. It's practically like a donut around the end of the runway at throttle. And he guns the engines as soon as we get to the end of the runway. The wind is howling. The plane is rattling. The GE CF6 engines are like just screaming. I don't know what sort of power we're at, but it's like maximum thrust at these things and then some. If this plane had afterburners, they would have been engaged, okay? I swear this pilot is sitting up there grinning, wearing a Banzai bandana like he's a kamikaze pilot or something. This is insane. One of the hoppers pops open, the plane is shaking, we're heading down the runway at knots. Everything is just noise. I think I'm possibly screaming at this point. I can't tell. I may be, but it's so loud from the cacophony of noise and wind and engines and other people screaming. So we're belting down the runway. Now bear in mind, this airport is also the airport, as I said, where I'm learning to fly. So I know geographically where certain elements of the runway are. I know where the air traffic control tower is. And I know that if you're still on the ground when you're passing the air traffic control tower, there isn't much ground left. You need to think about getting the nose up at some point. Well, out the window I can see the tower just sail by. And we're still on the ground, we're still accelerating. I'm thinking, well shit, we're heading into the trees, we're not going to get up in time. This is horrendous. I'm gripping everything tighter, everything is still shaking and rattling. It's a good job I have my brown pants on, you know what I'm saying? And somehow the plane manages to lurch into the sky. And it's not subtle, it's like way up we go, and I'm like, oh my god, my stomach is in my feet, everybody else is still screaming. I'm pretty sure the aircrew are putting parachutes on at this point. This is not a good flight. I'm not having a good time. But as we get all wheels off the ground, a big crosswind hits the plane, it yaws sideways, so we're like shit, and the pilot corrects and he brings it back in a straight line. The engines are still howling, everything is shaking, the air conditioning condensers, for whatever reason, are inside on the DC-10. It's not rainwater, but in my head there's water dripping in from the outside. It's just these things are sheds and there's AC everywhere. Everything is moving around. It's like the plane couldn't be much more in a state if it did crash. It's bonkers. And we climb and climb and climb, and these engines are at high throttle for ages. Now again, if you've flown a heavy, if you've flown in a transatlantic flight, or even a long local flight, a domestic flight, after a few minutes the pilot will throttle back and it'll slow his ascent slightly, just say fuel. No. This guy is at maximum throttle. He's got everything on maximum. He's like, I swear the guy is a maniac. And we're just going through clouds and wind and rain, and it's about a lifetime of ascent. It seems to take forever. And then we break through. Then we break through the clouds and the wind, and everything gets calm and he throttles back. And I think it's the first time I breathe in about an hour, okay? And I'm like, oh, we're up. We're in the skies. This is good. And everybody around me is like, the stewardesses stop making the prayer symbols and everyone is sort of relaxed. And then the captain comes on and he's like, hi, I'm your captain. That was an exciting takeoff. I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I'm like, and he's like, we heading into, I don't know why do all pilots talk like this? Welcome aboard. Why do they do that? Why can't they just say words? Why do they have to go in between everything? I don't know anyway. And he's like, so we're longer than usual ascent at full power has meant that we've burned a little more fuel than we usually would, and so we have to stop at Boston to refuel. Really? And Boston's got a storm. So yeah, we got into the sky and then we eventually got to America. And honestly, I was almost going to get a ship home. I'd have got a taxi home at this point. Worst flight of my life. So that's why I'm afraid of flying, because of this flight. So yeah, so there we go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that entertaining. My little story time, just putting that out there. And as always, leave your comments below. If you like my video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Popping up over there is the last video I put out, and below that is the one YouTube thinks you should watch next. If you want to see more of my content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash that alarm bell. Kapow! Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you in the very next show. Bye!